from all, to all, with all, for all, through all. We thank the gods of creation. We thank the ancestors. We thank the forces of nature. And we thank the earth. We thank them for their direction, their protection, their guidance, for keeping us, showing us, allowing us to know and enjoy life to its fullest, now and later.
Black people who once loved with the slow march of time. Time was ours to hold in the soft, love-warm chambers of our hearts. And once we, the Afro mommies and daddies of a sun world, would turn our strands of hair into antennas to tune in the juju madness and syncopated love rhythms of Africa. And we loved with time, and we took the time to love, and with the right time we love, and we love time after time. Will we ever love again? Will we ever love again? Will we really ever love again? Or will we just sit and rot away with the brighter tomorrows in the skag field, rat-cluttered halls of our minds?
Black people, what y'all gonna do? Black people, what y'all gonna do?
Will the real black people please stand up?
Jumbo Habari, and welcome once again to Our Story, the program that makes being black positive, relevant, desirable, and true to a lost nation in America. A program that speaks to the historical significance of the original people of the earth. Our Story Network takes pride in setting itself away from other programs that centers on entertainment or rhetorical mumbo-jumbo that misdirects your attention onto other things that causes you to exhaust your resources and renders you brain dead. It is Our Story who talks about commitment to you and your people. It is Our Story that champions the reestablishment of the black genius that once ruled the world. It is Our Story that focuses you in on the rewards of black activism, black advocacy, and black involvement. It is Our Story that encourages survival of the black race and solicits your involvement to that end. Black folks must remember race first is the call of the day, and we as a people must take the pledge if we, the people of the original race, expect to survive. As I take the many lessons I have received over the years and reflect upon them by sharing these lessons with my brothers and sisters, I realize the power that we as a people possess for the most part has gone unnoticed. The masses of black folks who have been rendered lost and disenfranchised from the meaning and mission our creators intended for us to embrace is all but depleted. It is because of the mission and meaning of our life, of our ancestors, that I realize how blessed as black people we really are. What fascinates me are the many gifts I have been granted, which allows me to distribute the information onward to you. As always, that message begins and ends with the importance of blackness. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Greetings, friends, comrades, family, the inquisitive onlookers, and our beloved viewers. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to Our Story Network. We thank you for being with us this evening, and we trust you will take something of value away with you after the program. That is the aim and goal of Our Story Network, the network that leads the pack in modern-day communications and ancient and modern education. I say ancient and modern education because of the many errors we have found in the translations and interpretations of ancient records. The modern revelations by new black scholars have opened the window of discovery that has allowed the truth and knowledge originally disseminated by the black masters of education to flourish once again. This is one of the stumbling blocks that has kept black people from rebuilding their greatness and recapturing their birthright. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Before we get into this evening's topic, I want to comment on the current loss America is going through. Bush 41 has finally died, and America has grinded to a halt. Today, Wednesday, December the 5th, the current president shut down the government to pay respects to the fallen president. Personally, I am tired of hearing about how George Herbert Walker Bush was when he was president of the United States. Not from my memory, especially when it comes to black people. Bush 41, former CIA director, was responsible for the outpouring of drugs from Central and South America into the black neighborhoods of North America. Bush 41 also was responsible for the jailing of more black folks and the rejection of more black mothers and black children from government programs than in most prior administrations. So save me the flag waving and the tears over a monster who was an enemy to black people. As Mom Mabley always said, if you can't say something good about a person, say nothing at all. George Herbert Walker Bush is dead. Good. Let us dance on his grave. As we segue into the next comment, I want to disclose my views on The Hate You Give, a moving drama about police murder in the black community. The Hate You Give is an emotional look at the continued killing of black men by police departments throughout America. As for most movies, the truth is rarely told. This movie follows that road as it journeys down the thin line of fiction and reality. Screenwriter Audrey Wells, a native of San Francisco, uses the Black Panther Party platform as the storyline for a daughter, Star Carter, who is one of 3 children who live with their mother and father. The father, Maverick Carter, a former Panther who happened to own a grocery store in a poor black neighborhood that was purchased by drug money the father gained while in the drug gang. The father was released from his gang obligations because the father did a bit in prison for the drug lord he worked for. This afforded the father the opportunity to get out of the gang in order to live a respectful life. Lisa Carter, the wife, was helping to raise an outside son of Maverick, which was conceived while estranged from his wife. Since the family chose to live in the neighborhood where the store was located, the parents wanted their children to be schooled in a nearby, mostly white suburban school. The combination of Panther politics and the so-called, quote, normal society, close quote, brought on an interesting set of events that grew concern over how and what threats do for benefits of black people. Since blacks are not represented in the theater as equals, blacks still form a backseat to the European, mostly Jewish-controlled industry that shapes ideas and attitudes for the American population. I know blacks have been praising the work and advancement Hollywood seemingly has achieved, but realistically, Hollywood still places black in the background of what really is and how life in America actually unfolds. The Hate U Give is a perfect example of how Hollywood changes the real context of the American story. As The Hate U Give gave the world the impression that whites are still on the top of the moral ladder and blacks are enemies of morality. The integrationists had a free hand to paint relationships in black community as being unusual, and blacks are looking for any reason to choose a partner of another color. This is an opportunity for whites who support white supremacy to push down the throats of America the wedge that postpones the realization of the birthrights whites stole from blacks centuries ago. Once again, blacks are robbed of their rights to self-determination and self-respect. Tonight, we are going to look at the life in America from a black woman's eyes. Yes, we hear about the difference in treatment for black women, but tonight we are going to give a dynamic black woman an opportunity to share with us her trials and tribulations at being a genius in a world that refuses to acknowledge genius in any black beings. Melva Vallery, a New Orleans original, has worked tirelessly promoting New Orleans culture and the magic of New Orleans music. Sister Vallery has been through the ringer when it comes to fighting big business toe-to-toe. From all of the experiences Sister Melva has with business, she will share some of the wisdom with us tonight as she broadens the spectrum to include the many ways the society disrespects and disvalues the worth of the black race. Without more introductions, I proudly present Sister Melva Vallery. Welcome, Sister. Please begin with a brief overview of your background and activism. Sister Melva, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wes. And I tell you, that genius part, I'm still smiling on that. Nobody thought that but my daddy.
Okay.
And kidding. But I'm from New Orleans, and I'm from New Orleans on my mother and father's side for generations. I was one of those fortunate people who, my great-grandmother's, my mother's maternal grandmother and my father's maternal grandmother knew each other's girls back in the 1800s, and their mothers knew each other, and family and cousins, a lot of, if I start naming New Orleans uptown names, there are a lot of people that people would know, but I'm very honored. This was a beautiful city for me to grow up in, and I really have tremendous, genuine concerns about what our children and what families are facing now in New Orleans because they do not know what New Orleans used to be like, for black people. There was a lot of ambition, and I know there's ambition, but it's more isolated. It was more community. back in the 50s and 60s, and I'm sure even the 40s, wasn't around. But the people who came back after World War II, that episode of people were ambitious and intelligent and refined, and had a picture of my mother's brother on the wall, and one of the kids said, real gangster. I said, oh no, debonair, educated, refined, I say, think Duke Ellington, think Langston Hughes, for young people to immediately go gangster, there's nothing gangster about this man, nothing, but that is pretty much my background. My parents grew up together. I tell people all the time, New Orleans used to smell so fragrant. The night jasmine, the honeysuckle, the greenery, and it was everybody, even people with the simplest yards and the simplest box steps. They had bachelor buttons and 4 o'clocks, around their garden, around their stoop, as, the folks used to say. So that's a bit about me. I'm from Uptown. I'm from Central City. I'm very proud of it. My community was like every other community in New Orleans. There were doctors and educators and, men who worked on the riverfront, women who worked in the houses on St. Charles, women who worked in the sewing factories, and men. And it was a very, just a vibrant community. I think about how men used to play baseball in the parks and how people would gather. People didn't curse in front of people. People didn't spit on the sidewalk. So it's it's really amazing to see New Orleans, and then was to get disdain, if you might say something, in regard to these factors, of the importance of social protocol and civility, which is one of the things that we've also seemed to have lost. And the last thing that I want to say about the culture, black culture of New Orleans, is that when I was young, even to the 60s, 70s, 80s, when there were dances and balls and parties and teas, there were generations of people. There were the grandparents, the mother and father, the children, and so young people understood how to act. Girls knew that there were certain ladylike things that they were supposed to do, and it wasn't being bougie. It was just being a dignified woman who valued self. And that's one of the things that I'm concerned about now, because so many of the young people, male and female, they do not value themselves, and young men don't value young women. So it doesn't make for strong, adhesive marriages. But I guess I talk a bit too much on that. But in a little background about myself, I'm also concerned about the spirituality that's affecting us, and that we are not taking a look at, a candid, objective look at. And so I really would like to talk a bit about that. And I want to touch just a moment about that episode with Mattel Toys and American Girl, in my book. Because, when something like that happens to you, and big business and the judges and the federal judicial system all come after you and do not do things that are right and in your favor, it's amazing. And people don't believe. They really don't believe that it could happen. They believe that somehow I messed up. And that is far from the truth, Since I think this is the most important thing that I'd like to speak with you and your audience about tonight, I'm going to go here first, and it's will. It's will and willpower and free will. I'll say just briefly, I grew up I was originally Christian Methodist, because my mother's family and my father's two segments. But I went to Catholic schools, so I went to Holy Ghost, St. Monica, and so came up with a Christian background. Early on, 13, 14, I knew something was not quite right, with the teachings. And just very briefly, one of the things that I have a problem with is that if the first commandment says, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me, I can't understand why there's not one holiday of worship or homage to the Creator. And I just don't get that. And then if you say it to a minister or something, they resent it. They'll give you the spiel of every Sunday and every day and this kind of thing. Well, okay, so that's nice, but why not a nice one like you do for the Christ, or like on Easter and Christmas and the other days. But everyone has a right to their religious beliefs, which is one of the things that I wish people would sometimes look at the Morgan Freeman program, In Search of God, because what happens on that program is that he brings many religions, and religions that I find very strange and wouldn't necessarily be interested in, but it's just to let people know you're not the only game in town. And you don't get to decide who the Creator allows into that dimension that people are looking to go into. So back to will. We have prayer. Prayer is a petition. But in my opinion, will is when you will something. You make it happen. You take from within yourself. You take from outside of yourself. And you will it into being. And we all have that. We speak of free will. We speak of willpower. Now, willpower, most of the definitions will be of self-control. But willpower, really, the real willpower is when you will something and you make it happen. And we all have that. We all have that freedom, and we all have that right, and it's something nobody can stop you from doing. Who's going to even know? If you pray and meditate, or if you will and meditate, nobody really knows it but you. But the energy is still there. The energy is real.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why that's not addressed is because we were forced into the Christian belief system that most blacks now embrace. But when you look at where we came from initially, you will understand that we were a people who called on the elements, who called on the ancestors, who called on the spirituality to move mountains. And we had mountains moved. Europeans, colonizers, understand that they cannot continue to be in the position and place that they are if they allow us to make that connection once again with that spirituality that did so much long before they even came onto the face of this earth. But before we go on, I just want to remind the people that we have opened up the phone lines if you want to get in on the conversation. The number is on the screen, and we're looking forward to you getting involved with the conversation. But going right back into that line, our young people have no concept, no idea about what real spirituality is and how one can employ it. That is one of the things that's holding us back as a people. So you are right that we have it. We have a caller. Can we go to the phones? And caller, we ask you to turn the volume of your television all the way down. Talk to us directly in and through the telephone, please. Caller, what is your question or comment?
Greetings. I want to say I'm enjoying the conversation so far with the young lady. I enjoy what she began to say about how New Orleans was. What I've learned about New Orleans, or any city, different groups of people had particular experiences. But now when you read Louis Armstrong, My Life in New Orleans, you see the side at that time we don't talk about, where there was shootings and stabbings and barroom brawls. And I begin to understand that a lot of this stuff we see today, it was going on, in New Orleans, in neighborhoods where, people may not have had as much of the family structure intact at the time. And I think Louis Armstrong, My Life in New Orleans, and the characters he mentioned, and the stabbings and the shootings, and even some of the newspaper articles from the time, shows that it wasn't all idyllic that many people reminisce about, So that's just something I wanted to bring up. On the part of religion, Brother WC, when I look at, the traditional African religions, which incorporated the commemoration of ancestors, I have to also remember that when the slave trade began, and there were some Africans who collaborated with the Europeans, they were practicing those religions too, when they were collaborating to catch other Africans. Now, when we look at the Christian religion that black people had adapted to, it was not the same thing that the white people tried to teach. We used this spiritual system in America to resist slavery. The documentation is there, the facts are there. When they read scripture, we saw a different interpretation of the scripture. When they sang songs, we sang the songs differently. We used songs as code language to escape and to resist. So I think we have to keep those things in consideration when we're analyzing the embrace of Christianity by enslaved blacks in America. We didn't see it the same way the Europeans saw it. They attempted, in many respects, they attempted to avoid us practicing the religion because the natural logic was that blacks would learn it to have a soul and therefore they should be free. And so slave masters had a debate with each other as to whether they should be taught religion. And then those that decided to teach religion then tried to have supervisors and so on and so forth to teach them, it was God's right to be a slave. But we didn't take it that way. And when you look at slave conspiracies like Nat Turner and Denmark Business, that it shows you that we use this in a different way. And I continue to listen to the young lady talk about her experiences with the big corporation. Thank you.
Well, brother, I want to thank you for calling in because you proved a very good point. And we appreciate the contribution you made. Now, do you see what happened? Mm-hmm. We talked about the spirituality not being in place the way it used to be. And someone calls in and gives us a history and an accounting of that spirituality that most of our young folks don't have any concept of. But we know, many of us know, what was here prior to what was forced down our throats. And that is why I love what I do, and I love this outlet because it's able to start shaking the minds of those of us who have the knowledge to begin to speak it and bring it forward so the youth can hear and know. What do you say?
I want the young gentleman to know that I'm not at all refuting that there weren't stabbings, killings, and that there were, children, people who had difficult times, years and years back. But the ultimate of New Orleans, regardless of what anyone says, is that New Orleans was a very lovely place in the 50s and 60s. There was a lot of ambition, there was a lot of culture and refinement, the people, and this was not just one segment of people. Yes, some people may have had balls and parties that other people didn't go to, but everyone enjoyed the dances at the ILA and the Labor's Union Hall and up there in Carrollton at the place where there was an open band back in the 1920s and stuff. That was open to everyone. And everyone said good afternoon and good evening, and Miss Edna said, come get some figs, children. Y'all pick up all the ones on the low branches, So it wasn't just about, we've lost that camaraderie, that love,
Yes, I
that
agree.
community, that family. You know, when someone was building a house, all the men, when they got off from work, that Saturday and Sunday, yeah, they worked serve our work on Sundays because they went to help to raise that house
Yeah.
that their cousin or their, or their people
Right.
were pulling up. So it has nothing to do with the present, unfortunate things, and that's pretty much what I'm saying. Because we don't see the loveliness once in a while, we see it once in a while, but because we don't see the real beauty that is naturally us in humanity, I'll give it to humanity, but the beauty that we have, we don't understand how to manifest it to greater realms so that we can be at our best, or certainly be better. I'm speaking of things that are in our control. I'm speaking to the young mothers and fathers who give a baby a pig lip and a soda, and a bag of potato chips.
That's a death. That's a death wish.
And because of the lack of knowledge,
Yeah.
they really do not understand how detrimental and the kind of things that they are coaxing their children to like and to enjoy and
Which
to accept.
perpetuates slavery.
Right, and diabetes and heart
Yes,
disease,
exactly.
and and a lack of a functioning mind. There's again, I tell you the thing that I have about the Christ, and I'm not at all being critical, but I have to be honest because I don't want people to think that I'm, but I was relieved when I read your book, and I still haven't finished it. When I started reading it, I kind of skipped around. I read the table of contents, and then I went to some back chapters. But anyway, there were things in here that I was so relieved to see. I said, this is exactly what, but Wesley's saying different. And look, he's got all this stuff, this research that has been done that supports.
Right.
I would challenge Wesley. I know it's a. Well, I won't say that because what you speak, but I wish every deacon would be bold enough. All the deacons in the churches who feel they're really lofty and they really are pious, and they are good people. I know they are, but I would challenge them to read this book.
Yeah.
That
would be a challenge for them.
And discuss it. And discuss it in their churches. But if the deacons, then the children and the women are protected, if we need protection, but the deacons could do it. Deacons throughout the city. I guarantee you they will come away with being very thought-provoked. They may regret it, but only because they've come to another sense of knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
And just to say,
I thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh no, it's the truth.
Yeah.
I was, of course I've read it a little bit with my dictionary and going online to check, a couple of the things that you research that you can't help but go and say, oh, let me go see a little bit of what this is about.
Yeah.
But I this is the thing, and I know people will think it's strange, but I might not get a chance to come and talk with you again. I might, you might be busy, and you might have all these
Never
other.
too busy for you, sister. You know that.
Wesley, people have to understand that there are other dimensions.
Yes.
Sometimes I look at Donald Trump and I say, well, what is this for? He's either the Scarlet Pimpernel, or he's been in some other dimension where he was really this great, sharp hero president. And so when he comes back to this dimension, he thinks the Donald Trump in that seventh dimension, and this is the fourth, is doing all this great stuff and speaking all these brilliant factors. But the reason I speak of the dimensions is because we can't keep leaving these mysteries to our children. I came across a study that was done by the National Park Service. Well, the National Park Service of America, they paid for this study. The study was of black spiritualist churches in New Orleans. It was done by some professors from the University of Louisiana and, and a couple of other out-of-state universities. And in this book, this study might have won up at the Amistad or at the National Park Service. But in this book, they had documentation of people in the black spiritualist churches levitating, just coming up off the floor in their ceremony of them spinning so fast, like a top. Just really, and this is what we fail to understand. The real deal is that the powers that be cannot afford for us to understand that with our mind, with ourselves, we can be independent, we can manifest great things.
Yes.
If we knew all the components of the body, if we
Yes.
knew all the components of the eye, if we knew all the components of our brain, we could heal ourselves.
Yes.
You know, we could do wondrous things, you know, but we don't even consider these things. And you know, and sometimes when you say it, it comes across strange, but it's all true, it's all fact. If you knew it, because the body heals itself, and most of it comes from the brain and the energy and the willpower, the desire. When you lay,
You know, there was, week before last, there was a crusading Christian who went to visit a remote island off of the coast of India and was killed by the people that lived there. Because, first of all, I understand this was about his third attempt, and he was shot with an arrow once before. Now, this is an area that's off limits to everyone, because the government of India knows that these people are the last indigenous people, have had no connection with the outside world. They don't desire any connection with the outside world because they realize if people come in, they will come in with disease and wipe them out. This is what we fail to understand about us. And these people I'm talking about are black. If they're original, they have to be black. This is what we fail to understand. We fail to understand that when the creators began to create this earth and the life on this earth, we were one of the number of creatures that life was given to. That's why we are the original people. That's why we were ordained, if you will, by the creators that gave us a certain birthright that we continued. We find that all we have to do is research who we were and begin to embrace who we were and move towards becoming who we were. We will solve all of our problems.
And Wes, also exactly what you're saying, we've started towards those kind of paths before.
Yes.
And there's always been things thrown in, like you were speaking of the bushes with the drug war, with the
Yes.
drugs. You know, if you pump all those drugs in this land, I'd like to say to young people, anybody offer you drugs, they're not your friend.
Right.
You know, you can count them as an enemy.
Yes.
You know, regardless of who it is. And we have to, and then the thing about the drug fact is they got 5 and 10 people whispering in these kids' ears.
Yes.
You know, to bring them off to that path and what you can do and don't have to worry about. And it's all lies. It's destructive. Using the drugs, selling the drugs, you know, it's all destructive. And so it's things that we have to do, and these are things that are in our power. You know, and if we just will that all adverse things to life, you know, all adverse things neutralize. We don't have to send it back on anybody. We don't have to fight them. Just neutralize it.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, we don't want to get caught into that dimension with, okay, this devil had this power and this devil over here had this power. Now we got to, and we done send it back and we done, you know, neutralize it so they can't touch you.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like a karma factor
Right.
also.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But I have real faith that we are going to rise up, you know, and do what needs to be done. I remember in the 50s, 60s, in that time frame, 70s, the white American, and I don't want to be, you know, white America, they used to make fun of Asian people like they made fun of blacks. They used to, but Asian people got their act together. You don't see any homeless Asian people. You know what I'm saying? You know, we can do the same thing, and that brings me to this factor, because I don't, you know, I'm bad with watching time. I want to talk about the New Orleans Black Indians.
Okay.
May I jump to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I hope anyone who's watching will tell them, you know, really how I feel, you know, because my personal belief, my personal feeling is that I think the New Orleans Black Indians are the most magnificent cultural factor that we have. I think that they are the key to putting out a cultural message that can change our feelings about ourselves. You know, I could see them doing a song, you know, with the chant, the call and response, and the chant be heal, and then the wild man gets to sing a stanza, or the drummer gets to sing a stanza, you know, as to who, you know, and this is kind of how, I remember as a little girl, had to be 7, 8 years old, the Indians, I think it was Fletcher, I'm not sure, but those are some of the chiefs that used to be in the community. It was at 4th and Willow Street. They knelt down in the street to pray. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what it did to the crowd, you know, the energy, the magnificence, you know, of what it did to the crowd. It was almost like you almost couldn't hold onto your body. It was like almost coming out of yourself. And I have never in my life seen such fervent, sincere prayer in any church that I've ever been in, at any kind of ceremony, as the Indians kneeling down, praying for the community, praying for, you know, I don't even remember what, but I can remember the reactions of the men and the women, you know, and it was just, these are what we already possess. And I would like to see the New Orleans Indians understand, and yes, make money. You know, other people are coming in and making money off our culture.
Yeah.
You know, the New Orleans Indians, they have so many beautiful things that can, you know, the tambourines, you know, the feathers. And we don't want anybody, you know, it should be a law, nobody, unless you are an actual New Orleans Indian, cannot wear more than 2 feathers. You know, so
Yeah.
that if they sell a product on a clip, or you know, then, you know, this is only because we are, and it should come from an Indian group, not from some store somewhere that's gonna, you know, bootleg them. You know, it should stay within the culture.
Yeah.
You know, and the Indians, you know, I wish they understood how powerful and all that they have that, you know, could be so beneficial to our community.
Well, I believe they're beginning to know what power they have. Brother Glenn Jones from Data News has organized a lot of the black Indians, and they've incorporated something called blackmasking.org. Mm-hmm. And he is pushing, I mean, diligently, mm-hmm. to bring the culture under the control of the people that live that culture. Mm-hmm. We just had a Thanksgiving Day event over at Stallings Gentilly Park, mm-hmm. where the Uptown Indians played flag football against the Downtown Indians. Okay. This is an annual event. This was the first year, but it's going to be an annual event.
That's great.
He has come about organizing the various tribes to begin to do these kind of things.
Well, now, Wes, the New Orleans Indians have been organizing for a long time, just like black folks, like we've been organizing. You know, we got some measures, but I mean, they've been the New Orleans. I think it's called the Indian Council.
Yes.
You know, and they do exist. And this is kind of where my appeal, because I've appealed to them before, and I've done, you know, a couple of ventures, small things with them, but I just see their greatness, and I don't, sometimes, you know, as an artist or as you can't shout your own praises, excuse me, but the Indians, they may not feel like they can swag, and you know, and they do swag, yeah. But they really need to understand, you know, what they can do for this community. And it's not just the product association. You know, those are men who are carpenters, who are builders, who are waiters, who are teachers, you know, and there's a lot of knowledge there. Like I always think, okay, when again, to the young man, I hope he's still listening. When I was young, when I was back in the 60s, 70s, people didn't put garbage cans on the front sidewalk. Everybody's garbage cans was in the backyard, or in the alley. You didn't see these garbage cans. There were the galvanized ones, and then they became the plastic ones. But when you bought used to buy your own plastic ones, they went into the backyard. They were also washed every couple of weeks, even though there were plastic bags and the galvanized, we used to line them with newspaper. I know the kids are saying, what? But we did. We lined them with newspaper. But I think that for us, for cabinets to be built, for the garbage cans to go into, because like in the quarters, they can't even fit through the alleys. The Garden District, all through Uptown, everybody would love to have this nice cabinet, that they can just roll the garbage can and have a hose pipe at the bottom, put a fleur-de-lis on the front, or, a leaf, or owl, or whatever, But to make some money, to put our people to work with something simple.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the work factor, with the young people, let them work 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. Don't expect them to come and work 40 hours and they're not used to working at all. Give them 16 hours, pay them $200. Let them show up for 4 weeks of the 16 hours and then add on another, 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever you think is, because what happens is that I've heard men say, I hired these young men and after payday they didn't show up on Monday. It's things that we have to work with and nurture people into having good work ethics, and because it's just time. It's time for us to pull it together.
And speaking about time, we have the fastest hour in television, and we're getting close to that time. But I wanted to get back to see if there was anything else that you wanted to say about the encounters you had with the Mattel.
With Mattel?
Yeah.
I'll tell you. And what's funny? Okay, this is basically the disc with my court case from the 5th District. All on this little disc. It's in federal records. It's in federal records. Because every time they sent me one of these raunchy emails or some raunchy letter, I made sure that I filed it in my court documents. I had a relative say to some people, we were in a business meeting, say, oh, but she couldn't prove access. I absolutely proved access. The laws of proving access are very simple. And I want to say also, Wesley, I went through 3 sets of lawyers who were like gung-ho, couldn't believe it, never saw a copyright infringement, situation like this before in their lives. Copyright lawyers tells me this. Then they sent it out to another set of copyright lawyers just to have an assessment, and they said absolutely infringement. But Mattel Toys, people know they got sued for the Barbie doll back in 1961. The Bratz doll, they filed a suit against this company. Mattel spent $400 million fighting the people, lost, and had to pay them $380 million. So just saying, this is what I was up against. And when I look at things, it's like, suppose I was ill. Well, 5 years ago, if they had compensated me as I should, now going on 6 years, if they had compensated me the way I should have been compensated, think of all the things I could have done with my life, for my life. They took my product. All of the books, all of Mattel, all of the American Girl doll books are on this disc. My book is on this disc. Every document I filed, every document they filed. One law firm that was working for me, I wondered if they could compose a decent document, a decent filing, because everything was kind of slovenly done. And then when I complained and I was moving from them, and they sent me this letter, so professional. I mean, you would have thought
right,
Obama wrote,
right.
And so, but just saying. I would tell everyone to be very careful, and I was copyrighted before they used it. I don't think they thought I was, because I had changed the title when I went to copyright, simply because I saw other books with the same title of the necklace, and I changed mine to Baba Grace and the necklace. So they obviously didn't find it. But the Barracuda, I would boycott Mattel. I wish everybody would boycott them. You know what I'm saying? They do not, and they have a lot of products. And the last thing I'm going to say, it's a funny thing. Before I even thought about boycotting, when I was still fighting them, and I did send communications out to various media nationally, and Mattel stock has been falling steadily for the past 2 years, and I mean like 40%. That's huge for you know. So anyway, I just,
ancestors could be having your back.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yes, indeed.
I'm confident of it.
I know that you have been very instrumental in quite a few of the promotions that used to go on here years ago. I guess you probably miss that now?
Oh, very much. Particularly since I look at things and I see you start me off, you know, the 300-year anniversary. You know, it like kills me that people, and then people will steal your project ideas. But if I was celebrating New Orleans 300 years, I would have had Bienville. I'd have had somebody. I had made a little contest. Who wants to be Bienville? You know, let me see if you look like Bienville. I'd have had all the mayors, from the first mayor of New Orleans, you know, to the present mayor. I'd have had everybody instrumental, black, white. I definitely would have said, you know, Marcus Garvey was deported from the port of New Orleans in 1929. You know, families could have said, okay, we want to have a little tea, and we're going to present these ancestors, and different young people in the family could dress up as the ancestors. What did we do for 300 years? What magnificent thing can we turn around and say, wow, that was a hell? Like my daddy used to say, excuse me, Wes, I know you don't play profanity on your show, but my daddy used to have this term, that was a hell of a, you know, you know, and that's what we should be saying about this 300. When is the next 300 years or 400 years, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Before we get out of here, I wanted to share with our viewers that Southern University at New Orleans, better known as SUNO, School of Social Work is cordially inviting all of you to a holiday alumni roundup social. It will be on December the 14th from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. in the Millie M. Charles building on campus. They're asking you to come and enjoy the holiday spirits with them, to meet new friends, to meet old friends, and to and listen to the entertainment and live music by Sharon Martin and friends. Join the Southern School of Social Work Alumni Association to enjoy the holidays, and also to help ensure that not only the School of Social Work, but the Alumni Association is continuing to be strong and viable in our community. For more information, if you want to give me a call me at 504-251-2201, and I can put you in touch with people for the tickets and any other information you may need. I want to thank you for that. Also, while I have a minute here, I wanted to talk about our story, the original Holocaust. And we talked about this earlier, but it is one of the most unique writings that you will find in the store, in a bookstore. I want you to consider seriously looking into getting one for the holiday season. They are available at 2523 Bayou Road, which is Community Book Center. They're available at Wayne's World and Sons at 2255 St. Claude Avenue. And they're also available at the Educator's Delight, 3501 Holiday Drive, Suite 405 on the West Bank. So, and if you need more information, give me a call at the number that's on the screen, and I can also give you information concerning that. I want to thank all of you that have purchased it as well. You guys give me feedback, and I certainly appreciate it. and I look forward to talking with you more about it. Sister Melva, I want to thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
We're going to have to get you back here again soon.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you are in the city for a minute and visiting with friends and relatives. And hopefully, after the first of the year, you'll be coming back in here, and maybe we can get you to come back on. I want to thank you, sister,
and thank
for
you for
that.
having me with.
You're quite welcome anytime. You know that. Brothers and sisters, you know that there is a war going on, a war against black people being black. There's a war going on to deny us our birthrights and our freedoms as a human race. Continue to fight, continue to watch, continue to be involved in this struggle. It's necessary for you to become personally involved. I want to thank you for watching us. I want to invite you back again and remind you that we're on YouTube and also on Vimeo. Till we meet again, brothers and sisters, stay strong, stay black, but most importantly, stay committed to blackness. Yahor Sasa Umgawa.
Sing a song, full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song, full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun,
Facing the rising sun, come on.
of our new day begun.
It's a new day.